in this lesson, we're going to be factoring a quadratic called a difference of squares. We'll be using product and sum to factor these, and we know that in standard form, a quadratic is x squared plus bx plus c. And when we factor using product and sum, we need to find two numbers that multiply that will give us c, but when we add those same numbers together, we'll get b. So let's actually try this example here. We have this expression x squared minus 16. Does that look like standard form to you? Well, maybe not, but what if I wrote this, x squared plus 0x minus 16? And now do either of these expressions look like standard form to you? Well, the second expression definitely looks like standard form. And aren't these two expressions equivalent? Aren't they the same thing? They definitely are. When we have 0 multiplied by x, well, that's just 0. So we don't necessarily have to write this. So x squared plus 0x minus 6 is the same thing as x squared minus 16. So automatically here, we know that b is 0. And then this is c. The value for c is negative 16. So that means we're finding two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 16. But when we add those same two numbers together, we're going to get 0. So let's actually just list out our factors of negative 16. Since 16 is negative, that means one number in each pair is going to be negative and the other number is going to be positive. So we need to find the pair of numbers so that when we add them together, we're going to get 0. And that's going to be 4 and negative 4. 4 multiplied by negative 4 is equal to negative 16, and 4 plus negative 4 is 0. So now when we use those two numbers to write our expression in factored form, it's going to be x plus 4 times x minus 4. And that's it. Our expression is now factored. And now it's your turn to factor this expression on your own. You could pause the video and then come back when you're ready to check your answer. So in this expression, we don't have a term in the middle, so that means it is just 0r. So b is equal to 0 and c is equal to negative 49. So we have to find two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 49. And when we add those same two numbers, we're going to get 0. So if you listed out the factors, you would get this. But if you didn't list out the factors and you just guessed in your head, that's totally fine. Your numbers should still be a positive 7 and a negative 7. 7 times negative 7 is equal to negative 49, and 7 plus negative 7 is equal to 0. And when we use our two numbers to write in factored form, it's going to be r plus 7 times r minus 7. Or you may have written r minus 7 times r plus 7. That's exactly the same thing. So it doesn't matter if the r plus 7 comes first or if the r minus 7 comes first. These are both correct. And go ahead and practice factoring a difference of squares, and you may notice that you see a pattern, or you might be able to find a shortcut that will help you factor these. But let's actually skip on to a question where it asks us to find the solutions to this equation. So we need to solve 0 equals x squared minus 25. And we're going to have to factor this first. So there's no term with bx, so that means that b is equal to 0, and our value of c is this negative 25. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to give us negative 25, and when we add those two numbers, we're going to get 0. And you may go ahead and list out your factors of negative 25 if you need to, but your two numbers should be 5 and negative 5. So 5 times negative 5 is equal to negative 25, and 5 plus negative 5 is equal to 0. And when we use those two numbers to rewrite this equation in factored form, it is going to be 0 equals x plus 5, times x minus 5. And when we solve this, we need to find a value of x that will make x plus 5 equal 0, and a value of x that will make x minus 5 equal 0. And you may be able to just do this in your head and solve this right away, but if you need to, just separate this equation so that you have two smaller equations. So 0 is equal to x plus 5, and 0 is equal to x minus 5. So these are our two separate equations that we'll need to solve. So in our first one, we'll need to subtract 5 from both sides of the equation, and we're going to get that x is equal to negative 5. And in our second one, we're going to have to add x, or add 5, to each side of the equation, and we will get that x is equal to a positive 5. So these are our two possible answers. So the value of x is equal to negative 5 or a positive 5. So those are our solutions, and we are done.